In the haze of making that Queen Never Cry manhwa baby video at 4 AM, I didn't think that people would take it seriously enough to consider the fact that I'm including XG and Misamo in the list of what can be called K-pop songs. Is XG considered K-pop? How about Misamo? What about groups like Katseye? If all that K-pop is are songs that are performed in the Korean language, what is a K-pop group? And do they have the potential to veer away from that distinction? Like groups who sing some songs entirely in English, can the title of K-pop be shed in those types of instances? Are Twice no longer a K-pop group at the moment they're performing the feels? I included XG and Misamo in my manhwa baby video without second guessing it. XG exists in the K-pop sphere socially as groups like Misamo do, but there are some complexities to this conversation that I want to go over quickly in this video. First and foremost, I do not have a hard set answer that I want to impress upon you by talking about this. My personal answer to this question is yes, XG is K-pop, out of my own subjective understanding about music and pop culture, though it's not a foolproof understanding, and I also don't personally take this discussion incredibly seriously. As someone who talks about K-pop pretty often, it's easier to just consider them K-pop along with all other artists I speak about, but there are some pitfalls to my own understanding about this that need to be addressed. The extent of my personal understanding is yes, groups like Katseye and XG are K-pop, but not only that. And I want to explain to you how I arrived at this conclusion. Okay, let's begin. Simply answering yes, XG is K-pop opens up a lot of problems. We can't stop there. XG can be considered K-pop on the grounds of them being a musical group who intentionally promotes in Korea using the Korean training system, but we can't just stop there either. Lady Gaga and Usher, for example, have performed on Inkigayo before. Does that make them K-pop artists? No. Solely performing and promoting in Korea doesn't suddenly make you a K-pop artist. There needs to be more than that. Hypothetically speaking, if Lady Gaga as a New York Italian-American was for some reason musically trained in Korea and proceeded to have the same discography as she does today, would the fact that she trained in Korea make her a K-pop artist? I don't think so. Again, there has to be more than these qualities. It's here that the very ambiguous definition of K-pop as it relates to the style of the music can start to betray us. How do we describe K-pop in musical terms? There's not a one-sentence answer that can capture all of it, so we need to start listing off attributes. For one, K-pop is known for its often laser focus on music production, and notably, how it tends to pull from and combine music genres from around the world. We can move on to say that K-pop is also well known for its commitment to the pop essence of pop music, in the sense that the efficacy of repeatable hook sections are treated with grave importance. K-pop also commits to the visual performance just as much, if not more, than the musical performance. Music videos are insanely high budget and of great quality. We can also expect a pretty decent focus on choreography, sometimes complex and other times simple and memorable for the purposes of imitation by fans. And finally, K-pop is primarily sung in both Korean and English. I think these qualities can make the biggest net I can throw around the what is K-pop question, but it still doesn't feel like it's enough. Artists like Beyonce and Michael Jackson embody all of these qualities as well besides the Korean language component. The one thing that distinguishes performance-focused artists like Beyonce from K-pop is also the thing that can distinguish groups like XG, which is the language aspect to K-pop. Maybe this is it. This is the deciding factor that makes XG and Katseye not K-pop, but I don't personally feel satisfied with this conclusion. With the training system, idol variety content, consistent promotion in Korea, and genuinely everything that makes up the product of the work being produced by the K-pop industry, more so XG than Katseye, these groups behave an awful lot like K-pop groups. So maybe the answer we're looking for here is that they're just global groups and not necessarily K-pop. The music label they operate underneath emphasizes that XG is not just a J-pop group, nor are they necessarily K-pop. XG, like many groups from Korea, are more accurately described and labeled as a global group, as are Katseye. They are global groups who have trained with the conditions of the K-pop industry and who are a part of and engage with Korean media pretty frequently. In the case of my manhwa baby video, should I have titled it Global Songs That the Manhwa Baby Would Listen To? I could have, but I think there's a better answer to this for me personally. Most K-pop groups are described as global groups. Even BTS and Twice are given these titles, yet I'm not going to say they're no longer K-pop just because they're more accurately categorized as global. Here is the scope of my own understanding. Katseye and XG are more accurately described as global groups, and the conditions of whatever can be called K-pop exist underneath that title. This, to me, is what separates Lady Gaga from XG and why I wouldn't include Poker Face in a list of K-pop songs despite it being performed in Korea. Her music emulates most of the qualities we can describe of K-pop, yet there are a lot of production intricacies, both visual and sonic, that makes a difference. Lady Gaga is a global artist who was promoted in Korea before, but what makes up the understanding of her as a global artist is different from groups like XG and Katseye. It becomes harder to distinguish when considering the nature of Katseye and XG's discography, some of it, as songs like Debut and Woke Up are meant to completely emulate the genres they pull from, but still, overall, enough K-pop work is done to allow me to consider it as such all the same. Again, this is not a foolproof understanding and unfortunately relies very heavily on cultural understanding and sometimes just vibes. Most artists are global focused, especially from a commercial perspective. Developing a global appeal is non-negotiable, it's a given, but as for what makes up the components of their globalness makes all the difference in my opinion. People then bring up that a K-pop group does need to have one or more Korean artists within the group. Katseye covers this attribute with member Yoonchae, who tends to be at the forefront of operations when promoting in Korea especially. So is Katseye a K-pop group on the grounds of the ethnic identity of Yoonchae even though they don't sing in Korean? I don't think so, and I don't think many people would agree to this. They need to sing in the Korean language to some extent to be considered K-pop. In this case, what separates a K-pop artist from an ethnically Korean pop artist? Is there a difference in these things for ethnically Korean pop artists who don't want to be idols? Does the term K-pop carry too much baggage in that regard? Again, this is where it's hard to grasp onto solutions and answers. I don't have a solid understanding of where we go from here, and so to get to the question on the table and work from there, are groups like XG and Katseye K-pop? I don't know, and importantly, I don't care. However, I say I don't care with careful consideration for the people who do take this discussion seriously and for the right reasons. I think there's a genuine conversation to be had about what we can call K-pop and what that means when we say it to help try and quantify it at times. But from the looks of the discussions people are having about it nowadays, I don't believe that's what most people are concerned about. These conversations border on racism and xenophobia very quickly and very, very often. That doesn't mean these questions don't have any merit to them. I think that just means we need to take these things with more care. Why do people ask these questions? Why are we so quick to exclude XG and Katseye from what can be considered K-pop? Is language all that separates these styles of J-pop and K-pop? And if so, why do K-pop groups tend to shift their sonic and visual approach when promoting in Japan? What separates K-pop from Western pop? Is it only language? With music production in mind and the clamoring about K-pop groups abandoning their identity to promote in the West, I don't feel as though I can make a solid argument here. There's more parts to this machine than just language. For the purposes of my manhwa baby video and this channel in general, the heralding conclusion for me personally, I would include Katseye and XG songs in the list of K-pop songs, but I wouldn't go out of my way to call them K-pop groups before I would call them global groups. Does that make sense? There's a difference in my mind of K-pop as an identity marker for artists and K-pop as an identity marker for music. They're not the same thing when I think about it. And thus, I wouldn't have included XG in a video titled K-pop artists I think the Queen Never Cry manhwa baby would listen to. I also don't mean to entirely condemn this conversation by making that kind of decision. There are so many moving parts here, and as a result of that, I'm willing to have my mind changed on this topic, absolutely, but from the perspective of people who approach it by categorizing K-pop with good intentions. I think XG and Katseye exist on the extreme and opposite ends of the spectrum regarding this issue. People primarily don't want Katseye to be considered K-pop with a lack of respect for the K-pop industry, and people primarily don't want XG to be considered K-pop with a kind of reverence for the K-pop industry. All in all, and from my perspective, a group like Katseye is first and foremost a global group with conventions of the K-pop industry working underneath the hood. So much of what makes up the K-pop industry exists within groups like XG and Katseye that I don't personally find an issue with considering them in conversations about K-pop songs in general. That is what I think. So after listening to this, if you have anything to add for consideration, if you see this in a different way, please let me know what you think about this. I know my own understanding of this has its pitfalls and can be seen as ignorant at times, and so I don't want to close this discussion in any way with my own understanding about this. As I said, it is definitely not foolproof. Yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching this if you did. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.